Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you about building a brand from scratch and the Cobra Beer story, which started for me in South India. Bangalore is where Cobra was first brewed. And I start with this, where the title of the talk is Fortune Favours the Brave. Duke of Wellington, his motto was Fortune Favours the Brave. And this will come through in the story. I have spent the last 16 years every year at the Harvard Business School. I am an alumnus through executive education there. And when I graduated from my program and became an alumnus, we were lectured to by Professor Clay Christensen. And he came in and just recovered from a stroke and cancer. And he said, I'm going to tell you, first talk, I'm really sorry. My mind has been affected by my stroke, not my movements. If I can't find the words that I'm about to say in this talk, please shout them out. And we had to shout out the words many times. And at the end of that talk, we were in tears and he was in tears. And I wish I'd heard that earlier in my career. And his message was very simple. He asked us, have you ever stopped and thought, what is the purpose of my life? And I ask you all that question. Have you stopped and thought, what is the purpose of your life? And linked to that, he said, how will you measure your life? It's a very individual question. And I'd like you to just keep that in mind as we go through this story. It is a story of building any brand, starting from scratch. That sort of, genius is 99% perspiration is absolutely true. That's our first company car. This is a touched-up photograph. It cost £295, and it needed push starting every day. And you could see the road if you look down through the holes in the floor of the car. And it was called Albert. And it failed its MOT 3 times. And this is the one word I found in an entrepreneur's story that really sets successful entrepreneurs apart from everyone else. One, they have the guts to do it. Lots of people have ideas. How many of them actually go out and do it? Secondly, they have the guts to stick with it when others would give up. And I've nearly lost my business 3 times, and that has stuck with me throughout. Blue ocean strategy, you don't have to invent something that never existed before. How many of you have heard the term blue ocean strategy? Can I just see? Great. So Cobra is a blue ocean strategy product. Beer has been around for thousands of years, but I did it in a way that no one else had before. And the idea is very often very, very simple. But the biggest challenge is actually when you're starting off from scratch is what I call crossing the credibility gap. That you're starting in business, nobody knows you, nobody knows your brand, nobody knows your product. Why should anyone finance you? Why should they supply you? Why should they buy from you when you have zero credibility? How do you even get off the ground? And I believe you cross that gap if you really believe in your idea and yourself and your brand and you're passionate about it and you have faith in it, because then that gives people the faith to trust you to give you a chance. Often it's a very simple idea. So in blue ocean strategy terms, beer's always existed. But what I did was I thought of doing it in a different way. The idea was while I was at Cambridge University doing my law degree, it was not a eureka moment. I did not go running down the streets of Cambridge naked. It was an idea that evolved through a huge dissatisfaction with fizzy lagers and bland, bloating, dreadful lagers, which I was presented with in pubs and in restaurants with Indian food, spicy food. You want something cold and refreshing, you get something cold, but it's bloating. So the combination of spicy, bloating lager and Indian food was very uncomfortable. And an English friend of mine introduced me to real ale. And how many of you like ale over here? Can I just see? Yeah, I love the stuff. And I loved ale in a pub on its own, but I couldn't drink ale with food because the ale is too heavy and too bitter. So I said, why don't I create a beer that has a refreshment of a lager, smoothness of an ale combined, that has global appeal in its taste, appeals to men and women alike, and accompanies all food, including Indian food and curry. So really simple, big idea. The word serendipity, one of my roles is I chair the advisory board of the Cambridge Judge Business School, now one of the top 10 business schools in the world. And Professor Mark Duron there, who I work with, defines serendipity as seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking what no one else has thought. And the best definition of luck I've ever heard was in the Harvard Business School classroom when one of my classmates said, luck is when determination meets opportunity. If you're not determined, you will not even see that opportunity. And I picture it as waves that go past you in life. If you are determined and lucky, you will catch one of those waves. If not, those waves will keep going past you all your life. That is the first brewmaster that I worked with, who I created Cobra Beer with, Dr. Karepa. The lucky break I got was my business partner and I were importing products from India. The beer was the big idea. We went to see our mentor, and the mentor gave us an introduction to Mysore breweries, the biggest independent brewers in India at the time. They were doing really well. They were very profitable, and they had the best brewmaster in India, Dr. Karepa. All pure luck. And the brands that they offered us, they said, we'll export beer to you from India to the UK. They'd never exported beer before. And they said, you can have our best-selling, one of our two best-selling brands. The first one is Pals, and Pals is the name of a dog food in the UK. So we said, no, thank you. Then they said, okay, then you can have our very best-selling brand called Knockout. And Knockout was an 8% strength beer, and the label was one boxer having knocked out another boxer. We said, not quite for us, thank you. And they said, okay, you know something? You young boys, you've got no money, you've got no experience in our industry. No Indian beer has succeeded in the UK except for Kingfisher. All the others have failed. I tell you what, we want the prestige of exporting beer from India to the UK. You do it under your own brand name, because you're going to fail. And if it fails, it's your brand that fails. Now, I wouldn't be here talking to you now if I had been an agent for one of their brands, because our most valuable asset is the Cobra Beer brand. So luck plays a big part in any entrepreneurial story. Trust is the other thing. My business partner, Arjun Reddy, who I started with, I could not have done it on my own, and I would have trusted him with my life, literally. And we parted after 6 years, but to this day we're the best of friends. Normal German beer, you have to in Germany produce beer only using those ingredients. With Cobra, we talk about craft beers. We're, I suppose, the ultimate craft beer. Very complex recipe, 4 varieties of hops, maize, rice, wheat, and a very complicated way of producing it that gives it this extra smooth taste. Mission, right from the beginning, that's what I wanted to do, and that's my aim right now, to brew the finest ever Indian beer and to make it a global beer brand. This is something you can measure all the way on your journey. Are you the finest ever Indian beer brand? And are you global? So at Harvard, I learned that you've got to be confident but not arrogant. And you've got to be ambitious, but humble. You've got to be humbitious. So ambitiously, I say, we are by far the best ever Indian beer brand. But we're nowhere near a global beer brand, and I will come to that later. We've got a long way to go, but we can measure our progress. It's always against odds. I mean, we had all the odds stacked against us. No money, no experience. All the big brands were there. Kingfisher were there 8 years before we started. Beer brands tend to be not only big, but ancient. Stella Artois, 14th century. Grolsch has just celebrated its 400th anniversary. Kronenberg, 1664. I could go on. And of course, nobody thinks you stand a chance. And the people closest to you, for the right reasons, say don't do it. My father had become Commander-in-Chief of the Central Indian Army, commanding 350,000 people. And while I was developing Cobra in Bangalore, I'd go up and see him. I knew he couldn't support me financially because Indian Army officers got paid very badly in those days. But I thought some emotional support from my father. What are you doing? All this education? And you're becoming an import-export walla. Get a proper job. Anyway, became my greatest fan once we succeeded. And Michael Porter's 5 Forces Market Entry Analysis, any of you studied that? Yes, I would have failed all of them. Fail, 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 fail. Okay. I had a few things in my favor. The growth of lager, before I was born, 1% lager, 99% ale in the UK, and look how it's changed. And the growth of Indian food. I mean, how many of you like curry and eat Indian food regularly, can I see? Yeah, we're all curryholics. And now, if I bring this up to date to the next decade, it's already 12,000. And of course, the favorite drink with Indian food and curry is beer. We brewed it in India for the first 7 years, and then this is one of the lessons, is adapt or die. There are forks in the journey of any entrepreneurial journey where you make a decision. If you don't make that decision, you die. If you're not willing to adapt, you die. In quick example, our sales took off in 1 year and doubled. Our problems of importing beer from India quadrupled. We were by then the biggest selling export beer out of India. Containers not arriving, containers getting stuck, quality problems, consistency problems. The brewery just couldn't handle it. And so we said to our distributors and our customers, we're going to have to brew under license that everyone else does. They said, if you do that, you've been importing the beer from India, authentic Indian beer, we'll stop buying from you, your consumers will stop buying from you. And one of the lessons that Mr. Afridi just shared with us is about consumers, and I learned this from the Indian restaurateurs. They always put their consumers first. And I said, the distributors are saying they're not going to buy from us, let me ask the consumers. And I asked consumers, and did surveys with thousands of consumers, what is it important about Cobra Beer? Is it the fact that it's imported from India? Is it the extra smooth taste? Is it that it's a premium product? Is it brewed to an authentic Indian recipe? Number one important thing for the consumer, by a long shot. Extra smooth, less gassy taste. And the last thing, the least important thing to the consumer by a long shot, imported from India. I'm brewing in the UK. And I moved my production, and all my problems are over. And I could produce a draft Cobra as well, which I couldn't do from India. I mean, you all say you like Indian food. Do you expect it to be cooked in Delhi and flown over to you? So, the evolution, it's been now brewed in Bedford, Burton-upon-Trent, where we brew it now, 3 locations in Belgium, 2 locations in Belgium, and we've got 3 breweries in India. We're now available in 98.5% of the Indian restaurants. That's ERS, also Chinese, Turkish, Thai. Supermarkets, they all sell it. And the impulse sector, pubs and bars, is where we can grow a lot and export it to 40 countries. The exports tend, literally from Australia to Japan, most European countries, Canada. And there's a lot of, and we work very, very closely with the British trade teams and the high commissions and embassies. They can help a lot. And that's why I think Board Beer, what you've got, the help over here, huge amount of help that you can get for businesses exporting. We can talk more about that in the Q&A, finding distributors. Brexit, I will save that for the Q&A. You can ask me about that. I have strong views. Now, these are my 10 Ps of building a business. This applies to any business. So product, you've got to have great product. It's got to be at the right price. Cobra is a premium product, so it's expensive. It's got to be available. I've told you where Cobra is available, restaurants, supermarkets, etc. And you've got to promote it. Advertising, point of sale, PR. Okay, we're in a marketing. This is the 4 Ps of marketing. My extra Ps. People, most important. Building a great team. Whatever business you're in, it's about people. Finance. I could give you, I give lectures at business schools about raising finance for growing businesses, the biggest challenge for us, with no security to offer, no collateral. Passion. I believe you've got to love what you're doing. You follow your passion, not your pension. Profit is not a dirty word, and you've got to make good profits. And it's all about partnership. Not just my business partner, but we partnered with everybody. Our accountants, our lawyers, our advertising agencies, our suppliers, our consumers, they're all partners. And finally, principles. It is better to fail doing the right thing than to succeed doing the wrong thing. Partnering with a team, if you want to ask me in the Q&A, you can ask me about Samson. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question. Please be honest with yourselves and with me. No right or wrong answer. If you think you're creative, please put your hand up. How many of you think you're creative? You just put your hands up if you think you're creative. If you're not, don't think you're creative, keep your hands down. Let me just have a look, please. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. So I asked this question around the world. Normally, it's about half the hands that go up. But given the topic and the audience, a little more than half the hands went up. I was told throughout my childhood and youth, Karan, you're doing well academically, keep going, you should do well, but you're not creative. Why? I couldn't draw. I was useless at art, not creative. Karan, you will learn the piano. I passed grade 1. Please give up, you're tone deaf. Not creative. So I went through all my youth, all my studies, college, university, the whole lot, being told and thinking I was not creative. And when I started my business and I became an entrepreneur, I realized the most important skill you require is the ability to be creative. And I was creative, and I had that ability in spades, and it had been suppressed throughout my youth. What a waste. I just wish around the world we would encourage our children from a young age to have the confidence to be creative, whatever their career. Wow, the GDP of the world would double. It manifests itself in many ways. So that bottle of, how many of you know Cobra Beer? Can I just see, do you know, you can recognize that bottle? That's the first bottle in any consumer product in the world that tells a story visually as part of its packaging. Each one of those icons stands for a stage in the Cobra Beer story, and this inspiration came from Roman, Greek, and Persian columns where sculpture tells a story. King Cobra, which we produce in Belgium, first time ever, a lager double fermented with an ale yeast with the yeast left inside. Unlike champagne, we take the yeast out. Phenomenal product. And the ultimate craft beer. Non-alcoholic beers are disgusting. Yeah, we produce one that actually tastes really good. These are our smooth pour glasses, not just any old beer glasses. And these are our story glasses with a smooth pour with the story of Cobra, which is just, you can just do everything better. When it comes to advertising, you could be really bold. This was our first campaign created by Saatchi's, our spokesperson, Curryholic Dave. The beer from Bangalore that lets you eat more curry. The beer curryholics adore, it lets them eat more. The less gassy, more classy Curryholics beer. I could go on. And then finally, we were ready for television advertising, and Saatchi said, look, we're going to produce your TV advert in India. Are you happy with that? Yeah, great. Before we go, would you like to see the budget? Luckily, I was sitting down. $1 million just to make the ad. And we were a small company. This is over 10 years ago. So why so much? Look, we've got to take everyone there, production, director, film, bring everyone back, do everything there. Okay, you know you're a small company, Guinness, Stella, they'll spend $1 million to make an ad. We'll make 2 for you while you're out there, 2 for the price of 1. That's very generous of you. Bollywood makes more films than Hollywood. Oh, India has a highly developed commercial advertising industry. We will use Indian resource. I found that best director, best production company, we produced 2 films in India for a fraction of $1 million. That's not outsourcing. It's right sourcing. A win for Saatchi and Saatchi British creativity, win for Cobra Beer, a win for India, Indian production. And with a bit of luck, I can show you these films. Here's the first one.
In India, we are famous for being ingenious. Take our Cobra bottled beer, root for a full flavor, but with less gas.
So that was one. And this is the other one.
Ingenious. Take our Cobra bottled beer, root for a full flavor, but with less gas.
And then you can be even more creative. We had a film competition for young British filmmakers to put in films that accompany film, a blockbuster film. On ITV, we sponsored all the films every night. and 5 seconds either side of the commercial break. And this is one example. The only rule was no Cobra allowed in the film. The Cobra was in the frame around the branding. So you can have fun and encourage creativity and be impactful. It doesn't always work. Here is an example.
Cobra Beer.
Cobra, splendidly Indian, superbly smooth.
What a beautiful ad. £1 million. Train going nowhere. Waste of money. It's so easy to waste money on advertising, and that's an example of it. We got back on track with this chap called The Boss, and this is an example of The Boss in action.
A great business brain is no good without a great business body. At the end of a long day brewing impossibly smooth Cobra beer, the boss pays this man to massage bash his atrophying muscles back into life. Rejuvenated, the boss is ready for a long night manufacturing impossibly supportive Braco braziers. That's what dedication looks like. One guy pummeling another guy in the neck. Live smooth.
So that went off very well. We won 94, so ambitiously I say, we've won 94 gold medals, one of the most awarded beers in the world. Fingers crossed this year we get to 100. This was the awards ceremony, which was in Malta last year, and we in fact won the prize of the one judge's beer as well, which is like being the best beer in the world, which we're very proud of. Sorry, I'm being ambitious. Here's the boss in action again.
Meet the boss. By day, he runs a successful beer company, brewing impossibly smooth beer. By night, he runs a successful brazier company, building impossibly supportive braziers. By day, premium beer. By night, premium braziers. By day, outrageously complex recipe. By night, outrageously complex embroidery. By day, glasses. By night, cups. Day, smooth. Night, supportive. He's the boss. And he never sleeps because he's living the dream. Cobra, live smooth.
The Great Recession hit us. I nearly lost my business for the third time, hopefully the last time. And I formed a joint venture with Molson Coors, one of the biggest brewers in the world, joint venture globally and one in India. A similar culture, shared values, and this word integrity, which we can talk about in the question and answer. Before concluding, I think it's very important, whatever business you're in, that you, not just what you do, but how you do it. We've got our own foundation, the Cobra Foundation. Very few British companies have their own foundations. And one of our projects is the Cobra Foundation Blue Water, where we sell this water in hundreds of Indian restaurants, and 100% of the profits we give to WaterAid for sanitation and clean water in South Asia. We give beer, donate beer on a daily basis to charitable events as well. In innovation, where innovation is concerned, we've spoken about that, and leadership, I just touch on the big, big difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and a civil service mindset, if I may put it that way, is, do you play not to lose or do you play to win? This I'm going to skip past. There's no time for this. And I conclude with what makes an extraordinary brand. So we do a brand forum, what makes an extraordinary brand. When Molson Coors did the joint venture with us, they said, we want to do this for 3 reasons. We want you as the founder entrepreneur, as the chairman. We want your team, and you have an extraordinary brand. And I said, thank you for the compliment. They said, no, we have 6 criteria of what makes an extraordinary brand. 1, Guinness, note I've put Guinness as an example, tells a compelling story based on an undeniable brand truth. For us, that undeniable brand truth is the extra smooth taste of the product. Extraordinary brands live by and refuse to compromise on their principles. IKEA is the example over here, and I hope that's come across. They have an instantly recognizable and iconic look. I showed you the Cobra Beer bottle, which we know is an iconic. The example here is Absolute Vodka. They deliver a unique, relevant, and consistent experience. As consumers, you are unforgiving with a consumer product. You expect every bottle of Cobra to taste like the last one, and it's a naturally produced product with natural fermentation process, natural ingredients, and you still expect it to be completely consistent. The example here is Starbucks. This is the most important one to me. Extraordinary brands inspire people to become their loyal brand champions. This is when you've cracked it. This is when people seek out your product. This is when people are disappointed when your product is not available or out of stock. And finally, extraordinary brands deliver extraordinary profits. This is reinforcing the partnership message. My wife is South African. You want to travel fast, travel alone. You want to travel far, travel together. And this is our vision. I spoke to you about our mission, to brew the finest ever Indian beer and make it a global beer brand. This is our vision. This is, I think, more important. It's your attitude. And this is almost a definition of entrepreneurship. To aspire and achieve against all odds with integrity. You come up with an idea, you want to get some of the idea, you've got all the odds stacked against you, you have little or no means, and you go out there and you make it happen. And most importantly, you do it the right way with integrity, and then the sky is the limit. And that is the end of my talk, and I will finish with 2 quick films, and I will be well in time to make up time. So this is one film. This goes back to the origins of why I created Cobra, to be brewed smooth for all food. And the 30-second advert that was on cinemas until the end of last year is this.
This is the first stop on my world tour. I actually have a giant truck full of Cobra Beer out there, and I want to prove that it goes with all foods. How you doing, big girl?
Good.
I'm talking to the truck. I'd never call you big girl. You. Thank you.
It's smooth like a nail and refreshing like a lager. It's very smooth.
Cobra, brewed smooth for all food. Follow the journey.
Thank you very much.